Hi there, welcome back. So we're going to be moving on to unit 3 now, and this is going to be unit 3 lesson 1, which will focus on expanding binomials. So just so you know, your homework is always listed up here. It says worksheet on Google Classroom. Please do all your homework and just keep a record of it, so keep it somewhere in your binder, because you will be handing in all your homework compiled in a worksheet at the end of the unit. Okay? Right before your test, like we did with the last class. Or the last unit before this one, so like we did with trigonometry. So, lesson 1, expanding binomials. By the end of this lesson, you'll know what the distributive property is and how to use it. You'll know how to use the FOIL method to expand binomials and simplify them. And then you'll know how to use the FOIL method to solve problems involving area of different shapes. So just as a recall from grade 9, the distributive property is when you give a term when you're given a term with number on the outside, right? So you basically are given something like this. This is the term, and then you're given the 2 on the outside, right? And so basically what you need to do in this situation is you need to multiply all the terms inside the bracket with the numbers on the outside of the bracket. So in order to expand, you're going to multiply 2 by x. So it's going to be 2 times x. And then also plus 2 times 4, right? So you're left with 2x plus 2 times 4, which is 8. And that's your final answer. A binomial is what's on this inside here, right? A binomial is a polynomial, an algebraic expression that has 2 terms that is separated by an x, a plus or a minus, right? So you have 2 terms, x and 4, and they're separated by this plus sign in the middle. So that's how you know that's a binomial, right? To find the final product of 2 binomials, so if I had 2 of those side by side, multiply each term in one binomial by each term in the other binomial. We use a property known as the FOIL method, right? This is basically the distributive property, but with 2 binomials. So the FOIL method just means that first you multiply the first terms together, then the outside terms together, then the inner, then the last. And I know this sounds very complicated, but let me show you what it looks like. So say you're given something like this, right? Really easy. What you're going to do is basically you're going to multiply first of all the 2 first terms together. Oops. Kind of overdrew the first 2 terms together. So you have A, and you're going to multiply it by C because they're the 2 first terms in that equation, right? So you multiply those 2 together, so you get A times C. Then you take the first term in this one and you multiply it by the last term in the other one. So notice how they're both on the outside of their brackets. So then you multiply the outsides. So you have first terms, and then you multiply it by the outside term, right? Then you go in and you multiply the 2 inside terms together. So if you look at them, the 2 inside terms are the ones that are closest to each other, right? So you multiply those 2 together. So you have B and C. And then last but not least, you multiply the last terms by each other. So you take the B and you multiply it by the D over here. Right? So basically what you did was you took the first time, you multiplied it by both terms in the second binomial, then you took the second term over here and multiplied it by everything in the second binomial. Right? So what I like to do is I like to cover up the second term in the first bracket and then multiply both terms in the second bracket and then repeat by doing that for the first term. So I basically take the A and I multiply C and D, and then I take the B and I multiply C and D, and I know that I've now gotten all the terms. All right, so let's expand and simplify this option over here. So I'm going to start off with the X. I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to cover up this term, so I'm just going to white it out for now, right? But in my head, I just covered up with my finger, but to show you, I'm going to white it out on the screen. So then I go and I say, okay, x times x, just like I would do with distributive property, plus x times 2, right? Then I go back and I get rid of that whiteout, and then I focus on just the 3, right? And then I got 3 times x, so it's plus 3 times x. And then I'm left with 3 times 2, so plus 3 times 2. I'm just going to go back and uncover that. Right, and then I just simplify. So I collect the like terms here. I just multiply here. X times x is just x squared. 2 times x is 2x. Plus 3 times x, which is 3x, plus 3 times 2, which is 6. Then I notice that these two are like terms because they have the same x with the same exponent, so the same variable with the same exponent. The reason that the x squared isn't a like term is because it has a squared and this one doesn't. So I leave the x squared as is. I do 2 plus 3, 5x, and then I'm left with the 6 left over. And that is my final answer. Okay, and that's how I would expand. So the first thing I did was expand, and then I simplified. So I'm going to do a couple more questions with you. I'll walk you through how to do each of them. And then I'm going to have you try and do these by yourself. And then we're going to go through a little bit more complicated of a question. See, now we have two where we have to do this set of binomials first. Then we're going to have to do this set and then simplify. Right? And then we have a word problem. Okay? So let's just go through and try this one. So I'm going to do B with you, but I'm going to say that you try C, D, and E by yourself. So pause the video, go back and watch those two. And I'll obviously put up the answers as well, okay? So here we have this one. Let's use our FOIL method. So I like to have them, I'm going to do them in colors for the first couple that we have. Let's use the same color. So I think we said F was orange, yellow, blue. So F was orange, O was yellow, I, and then L. Right, so let's start off. Let's do our first terms. First terms are x and 2x. And of course, you can just do the method I used above where you just cover up the 7 and then cover up the x. Either one works for me. Right, then you have plus x times negative 3. You need to remember that this is negative 3. Plus, let's go underneath and look at our second one. 7 times 2. And then plus 7 times negative 3. So let's just do the math. X times 2x is going to be 2x squared, right? We just assumed this is 1, so we multiply those, and then we multiply the x's together. Plus x times negative 3 is going to be negative 3x, right? A positive and a negative just become a negative, so I'm going to leave this as negative. Plus 7 times 2, which is going to give me 14. Plus, oh sorry, that's 2x, so it should be 14x. Don't get that wrong, it should be 2x. Right, plus 7 times negative 3 is going to be negative 21. Right, the positive and the negative just become a negative. Notice how there's this x and this x. We can now combine these two together, so we'll be left with 2x squared. Negative 3 plus 14 is going to give us positive 11, 11x minus 21, and that is my final answer. And again, you can go back, pause this, see how to answer that question. Moving on, so I'm now going to use that cover up method because honestly that's the one I like. I don't necessarily like using FOIL because this just makes more sense. It's the same thing, it just makes more sense to me, so use whichever one works for you. So I have 2x times 3x plus 2x times 6, right? I'm done both with the 2x, so now I'm going to go cover up my 2x. And remember that this is a negative 4. So it's going to be negative 4 times positive 3 plus negative 4 times 3x plus negative 4 times 6, right? So let's just do the math. 2 times 3 is 6. X times x is x squared plus 2 times 6 is 12, and then we just leave the x, minus 4 times 3, which is going to be 12. And the reason that we're doing minus is because this positive and this minus we'll just make it a negative. So it's 4x, and then negative 4 times 6 is going to be minus 24. I noticed that these two will actually cancel out. Positive 12 minus 12 is just going to be 0. So I'm left with 6x squared plus 0x minus 24. And 0x is just 0 because any number times 0 is just 0. So I can get rid of that in the middle. And that's going to be my final answer. Okay, so try and do these ones by yourself, D and E. I just want to point out here, it says x minus 5 squared. This does not equal x squared minus 25, right? Not the same thing. You can't just distribute the squared in like this. For something like this, what you need to do is you need to do x minus 5, x minus 5. So you need to change it into a binomial. You can't just put the squared in. It needs to be expanded like this. Okay? So pause the video here, try to solve it yourself, and then we can come back and solve it together. I'll go through it with you, and then we'll move on. All right. So let's move on. I'm going to use a pink pen, but I'm going to do x minus x times x, x times x plus, and I'm just going to focus on that first x right now. So like for me, I don't need to think about it much anymore. I can just do it without ever actually having to cover it up. But if you still need to cover it up, then you can do it that way. And I'm just going to go negative 5 times 5 is here, negative 5 times x, and then negative 5 times negative 5 plus negative 5 times negative 5. So I have x squared plus x times negative 5 is just going to be negative 5x, right? I can get rid of this plus and just put it as a minus now. Negative 5 times negative 5 is going to be minus 5x. Negative 5 times negative 5 is 25, right? Because the two negatives cancel out, so I'm left with that. I'm going to collect my like terms here. Negative 5 minus 5 is going to be negative 10x plus 25. And that is my answer. Moving on, let's do this one. This is a little bit more complicated. So let's start off with our 3x and multiply it to our two variables over here. So we're going to do 3x times 2x plus 3x times the other number in there, which is 7x. Right, and then we're going to move on to our next part, 4y times 2x, and then 4y times 7y. And now I've distributed those two together, so let's just do the math. 3 times 2 is 6, x times x is x squared, plus 3 times 7 is 21. X times y, because they're not like terms per se, you would just leave it as xy. Right? And then you have 4y times 2x, so 4 times 2 is 8. Y times x is just xy. Plus 4y times y is y squared. And then 4 times 7 was going to give me 28. Right? Notice how we have two xy's here. So we can actually collect those terms, right? Where we can just add the two numbers or the coefficients together. 2x squared, the coefficient is 21 plus 8, which could be 29, which is 29, no, could be 29xy, and then I'm left with 28y squared, and that's my answer. So try doing example 2 by yourself because it is a little bit more complicated. So pause the video here, try figuring it out by yourself, right? You just got to do each section by itself, right? And then ultimately what you have to do is you have to add everything all together at the end of it, right? So you have to, the simplifying takes a little longer. Okay? So hopefully you pause the video. Let's go back and do this section by section. So I'm going to do this first half in blue, and then I'll do the second half in my pink marker, and then we'll talk about how we can add them together, okay? So let's just go off the bat, and I'm going to use my blue pen. So we're going to do 3 times -5, right? So 3, I'm just going to come here. Give myself a little more space. So 3x times -5x, right? And then we're going to take the 3x and multiply it by the outer side, plus -7 times 3x, right? Let's now multiply the inner two numbers together, plus 4 times -5x, and then the last two numbers together, so plus 4 times -7. I'm going to do the same thing for my purple one. So I'm going to do the first numbers together, so 2x, and just make sure that you keep them in 2 separate brackets. So I'm going to put a big square bracket around this one, a subtraction sign in the middle, and a big square bracket around the pink one. So 2x times 2x, right, and then 2x times +3 plus 2x times 3 plus 1 times 2x, and then last but not least 1 times 3. And like honestly, I sometimes can just do this in my head, so if you can do it in your head, go for it. So let's just simplify now here. Let's start off with the blue bracket. So we have 3x minus 5x, that's going to give me -15x. -7 times 3 is going to be -21x, and notice how there's a negative positive there, so it's just I'm gonna leave it as a negative. -5 times 4 is -20x, right? And then 7 times 4 is going to give me -28, right? And I'm gonna leave these in their bracket. And let's go on and do the pink bracket now. 2x times 2x is going to give us 4x squared, plus 2x times 3 is going to be 6x, plus 1 times 2x is just going to be 2x again, and then 1 times 3 is just 3. Right? Let's go in and simplify our brackets now. So I have -15x squared minus 21 minus 21x minus 20x. I can just collect these like terms and simplify it. So I'm going to do -21 minus 20, which is going to give me -41x minus 28. Then I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to do 4x squared. I can't really do anything about it, so I'm going to leave it. There's no other x squared. But there is another x and an x. So 8x plus 3, right? Now, when it comes to dropping these square brackets, I need to take into consideration that outside of this one, there's a +1. If I multiply +1 by any number, it's just going to be the same number. So I'm going to just drop the brackets and write it out again. 15x squared minus 41x minus 28. And that's fine. You can just drop the brackets. But you can't do that over here because there's a negative sign. When there's a negative sign in front of your brackets, you just change the number inside of the bracket to the opposite one. So it becomes, for 4x, it becomes -4x squared. For 8x, it becomes -8x squared. For +3, it becomes -3. And that's just because if this had been a -3, it would change it to a +3. Just change it to the opposite sign. And now I'm going to go back and look for like terms. So I'm looking at x squared. I'm going to look at my formula and see if I can find another x squared. Yep, I can. So I'm going to group those two together. So I'm going to do -15 x squared minus 4x. And you can just skip this step if you would like to just do it all together. That's fine too. Now I'm going to go in and I'm going to find another like term. So negative 41x. Let me see if I can find, this is an x squared. Let me see if I can find another x somewhere. And I can, right there. So I can do negative 41x minus 8x. And then I'm going to see if I can find something that's just a variable, just a coefficient without a variable. And I have my negative 28 and my negative 3. And now I can just simplify. Negative 15 minus 4x is going to give me 19x squared. Negative 41 minus negative 8 is going to give me negative 49x. And then negative 28 minus 3 is going to give me negative 31. And that is my most simplified equation. So this one was a little bit more work, right? Because you had to do, there was 4 binomials instead of just 2. So you have to solve them each separately and then simplify everything. So we're going to move on. It says to write a simplified expression for the perimeter of the following figures and then find the area if x is equal to 5. Right? So let's do this. So I have an area, right? Let's remember what our formula for area is. Our formula for area is length times width. This dot I use is just a multiplication sign. So let's go say this is our length, right? I always like to make the longer side our length, and this one's our width. So what we're going to do is we're going to just substitute the values that we know, and always substitute them using brackets. So it's going to be x plus 4, that's our length, times 2x plus 1, that's our width. And now you see that we have 2 binomials multiplied by each other. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to multiply them out. So let's do x times 2x plus x times 1 plus 4 times 2x. And this is just what we've already been doing. Plus 4 times 1. Right, and let's go in and simplify. 2x times x is just 2x squared, plus x times 1 is x, plus 4 times 2x is going to be 8x, not 8x, 4 times 2 is 8, yeah, I was right. 8x plus 4 times 1, which is just 4. I can collect these two like terms, so I'm left with 2x squared, 1 plus, remember there's an invisible 1 here, 1 plus 8 is going to be 9 plus 4. Therefore, my simplified equation for area is going to be 2x squared plus 9x plus 4. And so if I want to find out, therefore, if x is equal to 5, sub 5 for x, and solve. Right, so let's do that. So let's do a is equal to 2, 5 squared plus 9 times 5 plus 4. 5 squared is going to be 25 plus 20 plus 4. 2 times 25 is 50 plus 20 plus 4. So if I throw that into my calculator, I should get 74. So the area, if x is equal to 5, is 74 centimeters squared, because it was centimeters, 5 centimeters. And that's how you solve that. So try doing example 3 by yourself, and if you have forgotten, the area for a triangle is base times height divided by 2. So I'm going to ask you to pause the video here, try it by yourself, and then we'll take it up together. So hopefully you pause the video. I'm just going to take this up together. First things first, this is our base, this is our height. right? So area is equal to 4x plus 2 multiplied by x plus 4 divided by 2. So our area is equal to, let's expand out our exponents at the top. So 4 times x plus 4x times 4, then 2 times x, and then 2 times 4, all divided by 2. And now I want to simplify, right? So I'm going to go in and I'm going to start putting stuff together. 4x times x is 4x squared, plus 4x times 4 is 16x, plus 2x, plus 2 times 4 is just 8, all divided by 2. These two are x's, so I can collect that like term. So it's going to be a equals 4x plus, say 18x plus 8, all divided by 2, right? And since technically I can go in and divide each term by 2, I can get rid of that 2 at the bottom. So I can do area equals 4 divided by 2, which was 2x squared, plus 18 divided by 2, which is 18 divided by 2 is just, so here, you can write it like this, right? Because the number at the bottom is the same, you could have written it like this. So then I can simplify. 4x divided by 2 is 2x squared, plus 18x divided by 2, 9x, plus 8 divided by 2, which is 4. So you can just simplify it into this answer, and that's your answer. So it says find the area if x is equal to 3 centimeters. So what we're going to do is take this equation, sub x equals 3. So area equals 2, 3 squared plus 9 times 3 plus 4. I'm just going to zoom in here so that we're focused there. So let's do area equals 2. Always do the squared first, so it's 9 plus 9 times 3 plus 4. Area equals, then you do multiplication just according to BEDMAS. 18 plus 9 times 3 is going to be 27, right? And then plus 4. And then you always do addition last, so just add everything together. So I have 18 plus 27 plus 4, and all of that together gives me 49 centimeters squared, and that is my area of that triangle. Therefore, the area of the triangle is 49 centimeters squared. So check it out. Try going through these by yourself. And then when you're done with these ones, go over, try your worksheet on Google Classroom to help you practice. Thank you. Have a great day.